welcome to dev server number 3. So they've definitely shuffled some things around a bit. There's some things that they haven't changed that I would still like to see them shuffle around, but in general I think people are going to be a lot happier with this one. So, starting off, you can already see we have a simple battle rating number instead of all of our different lettered balls from before, which is probably a good thing. We also see that across the board, most things in Tier 1, this being an exception, but most things in Tier 1 are actually Tier 1. So under the new system, I believe as they explained it, Tier 1 and Tier 2 can matchmake up to Tier 3. Tier 3 can go down to Tier 1 or up to Tier 5, and Tier 5 and Tier 4 can go down to Tier 3. I think a lot of people would like to see Tier 5 see Tier 4, Tier 4 see 3 and 5, and so on and so forth, but it's understandable that until we get more campaigns into the game and flesh things out a bit more, that we're going to see our current system. I think people will be a lot happier once some 1943-44 campaigns on the Eastern Front start coming out and spacing out some of the Russian stuff here. I think the Germans already could probably see some matchmaking like that because they really see 1941 with Moscow. They see 1943 with Tunisia, 1943 with Stalingrad, and then 1945 with Berlin. I think and 1944 with Normandy. So, like I was saying, except for 1942, they're mostly fleshed out. If they added in something on the Eastern Front in 42, or an earlier campaign in Africa in 42, if they add in the Battle of France, which would predate Moscow, you could potentially spread things out a little bit more. But I think they can't do that yet because the Allies don't entirely have that. The Pacific's kind of being a catch-all right now for the entire war, even though a lot of the maps look like Guadalcanal. So they kind of have 41, 43, and 44. But I think they need a little bit more to effectively space things out. But generally speaking, I think a lot of this looks pretty much how I'd hoped. Not what I expected, to be entirely honest. I expected them to just convert the map balls into tiers. So I kind of expected a lot of the Tier 2 stuff to be seeing like Tier 4. But it's pleasantly surprising. A lot of the Tier 3 stuff is actually Tier 3, which, to be entirely honest, I think a lot of the Tier 3 stuff will do alright playing up. The PPD and the drum mag Russian weapons still are paying the drum mag tax. I think some of them could be a little bit lower. Similarly, I think the Russians are still, or not the Russians, the Germans are still running into the same issue where they have a lot pigeonholed into a single BR, but I think some of this will be fixed with decompression once we get more than just Berlin in the game. I would like to see the MKB be in rank 4, because, well, I know it wouldn't affect the game right now, but I'm just thinking into the future. I would like to see it in rank 4, because I think there's a point in time where there will be a difference between rank 4 and rank 5, where right now rank 4 and rank 5 are effectively the same thing, per what I was explaining before. But a lot of the vehicles actually look alright. In the previous dev server, the Panther G could go everywhere except for Moscow. Now I suspect you probably can see everywhere except for Moscow in the new system, but the issue before is a lot of the Tier 2 stuff could see everything up to Normandy, sometimes all the way up to Berlin. So now, except for when people bring Tier 2 stuff on a Tier 3 lineup, more often than not, you're not going to have Tier 2 things running into Panthers, which will be a good thing. And likewise, when you look at America, the Calliopes are rank 4 now, and the Jumbos are rank 4 now. So a lot of the issues that looked like they were going to occur in the Pacific most likely won't be as big of a deal anymore. Because with the old system, the Jumbo could just see the Pacific. So if you ran a Pacific lineup, let's say you're the Japanese, right? Of course you're on the Pacific. It wouldn't have mattered in the old system whether you were running around with air-socket carbines and the 20mm AT rifle as your best AT weapon, or if you were running around with Type 4 launchers and Type 4 rifles. So this is a very, very good change. Now, don't get me wrong, the Americans are still, if they matchmake into the Pacific, going to have extremely spicy lineups. But the same is going to be true if they matchmake into Normandy. Because you can still bring Jumbo, Turner SMLE squad. I'd have to go into this area to find the Flamethrower boys, but the Flamethrower boys change based on what you put their primary on as. So you can still make a really spicy lineup. I'm not sure what the event paratroopers are at. I was away for 2 of the event paratroopers. I have the ones in the Pacific, and I have the premium squad in Normandy, but I don't have the British ones. But let's throw these guys on and see where they end up. So we're looking at battle rating 2 on the M1 carbine ones, which is actually pretty fair. They're only semi-auto M1 carbines. I think they're going to be extremely powerful, but they're not going to be game-breaking. I think they probably could sit at BR3 or Tier 3, Rank 3, instead of 2, and play up and play down, but it's not going to be the end of the world. I would really like to see where the other event paratrooper squads are sitting. Oh, that's really nice. They actually included the battle ratings on their cards here. So these guys are battle rating 2. These are the event Australians from last Christmas, New Year's. I don't know about having the motorcycles as rank 4. I don't really like that. I know that you can... Well, that's actually probably because of what I've got equipped on them. I'm curious if that changes. Because they have... Yeah, the Thompson is rank 4, so if I pull that off, then... It's battle rating 2. Yeah, it's because of the Thompsons. So, yeah, that's not the end of the world. Mind you, I personally would not recommend getting these guys or bringing them. When I was kind of naive and new to the game, I thought, hey, motorcycles are pretty cool. Hey, it's got a mounted machine gun on it. That must be pretty fun, but let me tell you, having a relatively static machine gun, it's not as good as it seems. They're really good for rushing out to a before paratroopers existed. They're really good for rushing out to a flank and putting down a spawn beacon, but these days I think they've been power crept. I'm probably going to make a video soon talking about an alternative to these that I really would like to see put in the game, but I still need to put that together. But as far as everything's concerned, I think we pretty much got exactly what they said they were going to give us, and I think it actually turned out better than how I predicted. I think a lot of what fits into Tier 1 and Tier 2, it's a lot broader than I expected it to be. I thought that some of Tier 2 would get caught off into Tier 3 and so forth. I also don't think that Tier 3 is going to be quite as painful as people think it will be. I think that there's going to actually be a lot of advantages to playing with Tier 3 weapons. It's a shame that the M1 Grand is not Tier 3. I think the M1 Grand could go down to Tier 3 and the Johnson could stay at Tier 4. But I think the M1 Carbine is Tier 2, so it should be fine. something people don't always recognize is that the M1 carbine actually has very similar kill rate to the M1 Grand. Um, most of the time, you're going to two-shot people with the M1 Grand. Most of the time, you're going to two-shot people with the M1 carbine if it's fully upgraded. Um, if they have vitality and it's not fully upgraded, it can be a three-shot. But they actually perform more similarly than I think some people recognize, and that had to be pointed out to me. I honestly thought that the M1 carbine was a weaker weapon than the M1 Grand, but somebody just yesterday was pointing out some of the stats to me with them fully upgraded, because I don't use a whole lot of M1 carbines. I use a lot of M1 Grands. But they're actually a lot more powerful than you might suspect, so I think they'll be able to play up well if you take them into a tier 3 lineup. But I think the main thing with running tier 3 lineups as America is that you have all of the bars in rank 3. So you'll be able to run two of these. In fact, I think most people are going to run 2 bar squads. It's actually probably a little bit iffy putting the Bren 2 and all of the bars in here. I mean, it makes sense, right? You want the Johnson to be rank 4. Makes sense to have this at rank 5 now that we're focusing on balance and less on historical accuracy and putting things on the right maps and all that. It's good that the first Bren is in rank 2. I think you could have made an argument for the Vickers Berthier then to be rank 1, since rank 1 and rank 2 are going to play together, but this might just be foresight for the future. It also might just be Gaijin things, in that when you're a new player, you're going to have to research several of these in order to get here, and it still makes it so that there is a sort of grind. I'm not saying that it's going to take a long time to get out of tier 1 either. I'm sure that you'll be able to absolutely blast through tier 1. At least in War Thunder you can blast through tier 1, and I'm pretty sure, it's been a while since I started a new campaign in Enlisted, but I'm pretty sure you can blow through the first like 5 or 6 ranks pretty quickly in the current campaign, so I can't imagine it's going to take very long to get here. And plus, you have Stens, which are really good, M3s, which are super underrated, and I don't think the M50 is bad at all. The thing that always runs through my head, though, with the M50 is those inflatable, like, sticks that people whack together at sports events. I swear to God, it sounds like that. I think the planes will be fine. You're still going to have a 1,000-pound bomb that you can bring basically anywhere, which will be nutty powerful. I'm curious how much of this I'm going to have to go back and research. I'll probably make sure I finish getting the FP3 before the merge. I mean, I have all the high tier planes, so that's fine. Yeah, all in all, I think most things are in a pretty good spot. It's questionable having all of the Thompsons in rank 4. I think you could have taken the M1A1 with its lower fire rate, and I think you could have put it in rank 3, and put it high rank 3 with the Lanchester. I think that there's the potential for issues to come about. Not like game-breaking issues or anything that's gonna really matter too much, but I think there's a potential for issues to come around in keeping things interesting by putting lots of weapons in the same BR range. So now the Kirli is a battle rating 5 weapon, right? So you have all of these weapons competing for your assaulters, and you have all of these competing for your new event engineers. And to be honest, none of these are anything to shrug at. I mean, I don't really care for the MP35, but I like the Beretta M38s. They basically, to me, feel like MP40s with a bigger magazine, so I like them. I also just like MP40s. I think the MP40 is probably the champion of this change, because it's going to be amazing playing down into Tier 1 and Tier 2. But, I mean, I've brought MP40s up against PPSH drums in Stalingrad, I've brought it in Berlin, I've brought it against bars in Normandy, and everything else they can throw at you. I think the MP40 is probably the gold standard for a versatile mid-range SMG. Obviously, it's going to lose to a PPSH if you're 3 feet away from each other clearing rooms, but if you're keeping a little bit of distance and you want something you can use up close, you can use at range, I think it's going to be really underrated. The same with the Beretta M1. Having the larger, this should have the 40-round mag. Yeah, this is probably the single most underrated submachine gun then, because performance-wise, look, you're missing 0.1 hit power. You've got the same fire rate. You've actually got less vertical recoil and marginally more horizontal recoil. Plus you're gaining 10 rounds. This is going to be the gold standard of Tier 3 weapons. This thing will be a nightmare to face for bottom tier weapons, and it's going to be good enough that you can play up to rank 5. I don't... Some of the people that think that rank 3 is going to be just a dead oasis of... Or I guess not an oasis, a desolate hellhole that doesn't have anybody playing it, I disagree. I think weapons like the Beretta M1, the Gewehr 41, the Panzerfaust, even your starting flamethrowers, I think that's going to make Tier 3 extremely powerful. Obviously, you don't have the range of the other flamethrowers, but again, I think people don't recognize that this system is going to be more limited in what you can bring into a battle than what we currently have, which is automatically going to be better than what we currently have, because it's going to create, more balance. It limits what you can see with your Gewehr 3340, where right now there is no limit outside of the hard cap on what's in the campaign. So, I think there's a lot of weapons here. The ZB-26, for example, plays up and down really well because it handles similarly to a bar. It has a lot of recoil, don't get me wrong, but with recoil perks, it's a pretty good mobile machine gun. Personally, I like MG34s more than MG42s because I think the fire rate on the lower fire rate on these makes the ammo belt feel more manageable. You go through 50 rounds so fast, I feel like I'm constantly reloading with the MG42. And it very much makes sense to put the Patronentrommel above that. The Panzer IV J and H at rank 4, I think, is a little bit iffy. The H makes sense. The J, you're always... See, this is... I think rank 4. Rank 4 is going to be the hard one, right? Because there are some really, really strong things in rank 4. Like the JU-188 is amazing. The Offenrohr is pretty good. Panzerfaust 100 is fantastic. Like I said before, I like Beretta M38s. I like the Gewehr 43. The ZH-29 is fantastic. Like, there are some wonderful things here. But then you've got a Panzer IV-J. And the Panzer IV-H really is not much better. The Panthers are going to do well, but the early tanks in rank 4 for Germany are really going to suffer. So if you look over here, the T-34 85s are in rank 4. I mean, they're in upper rank 4, but they're going to eat them for breakfast. I'm curious how the T-34 41 is going to fare with them, but I think the KV-1 will probably do alright. The KV-1 being in rank 4, though, right now in Stalingrad, it is a tremendously powerful vehicle. You need very specific things to deal with it well. I mean, obviously, anybody with a TNT pack, and every rifleman can carry a TNT pack, can get out there and can take care of it. But if the other team's playing well and they're protecting their tanks, you either need a plane to come in and take it out, or you need like a Panzer IV-G to come in and take it out. The F2 can do it too. And to be fair, the heat shells on some of the Panzer IIIs, if you get the right shot, can do it, but I've seen teams with 2 KV-1s in Stalingrad do tremendously well. I think having them at rank 4, though, where they're gonna roll into like Tiger 2s, Tiger 1s, Panthers. I think that the KV1 is gonna struggle. I recognize the KV1 is in a difficult position. I think it's really similar to where a lot of the heavy tanks are in War Thunder, the post-war heavies, right around like 7-3, that area. It's very difficult for them to balance vehicles like that because if you put the KV1 in Tier 3, because of the current matchmaker, if Tier 3 saw Tier 2 and Tier 3 saw Tier 4, you could put the KV1 in Tier 3 and it would probably be pretty balanced. You'd struggle when you went up against Panthers, and you would do very well when you played into Panzer 3s. And it would really just depend on what kind of matchmaking you got in that match. But right now, because you could see all the way down to Tier 1, it would be the same as putting it in current Stalingrad, where it's just the biggest, baddest dog on the block. So, I think there's an argument for not putting it in Tier 4. I think it might be busted in Tier 3, but I do think you can make an argument that asymmetric battles make things more interesting, and if you do put it in Rank 3, there are planes that are available before Rank 3 that can easily deal with it. And, you know, there's always the argument in Enlisted that every soldier is an anti-tank soldier because every soldier can carry anti-tank mines, TNT packs, and the throwable TNT packs, so it wouldn't be the end of the world to put it in Tier 3. I'd be curious to see what you all think. I think people are probably going to be happier with it in Tier 4, unless you're a Russia main and you really like using it, in which case, probably not going to use it a whole lot anymore. But like I said in the previous video, I think a lot of these BRs are going to be fluid. I think that we're going to see some shuffling between now and the launch, because people are going to obviously give feedback on things. I haven't played any matches yet on the test server, so, you know, bear that in mind. A lot of this is just my experience playing the game and me looking at what's here now. But I also suspect that within a month or two after this going live, when they have lots of data from players playing the game, I'm sure that we're going to see some things shuffle around. And like the roadmap said, because remember, we're only halfway through the roadmap, there were 4 parts to that roadmap, and 2 of them included new campaigns. We obviously haven't seen any new campaigns this year, since Pacific, I think, launched right at the beginning of the year. So maybe we get one more campaign later on this year. I'm sure we get new campaigns early next year. Depending on where they are, they could really help address this whole BR system. I still think that a 5-tier BR system is probably too low in the long run for all of World War II, but it makes sense with the condensed World War II we're playing with right now, because we just don't have a lot of the war, essentially. We just have little pockets here and there, and once that gets fleshed out, I know a lot of my friends really want to see Kursk. I know some of my friends really want to see the Battle of France. I think the Battle of France doesn't solve any of the issues, though, so as much as I would like to see the Battle of France, and I would like to see more early war stuff, all that does is expand Tier 1. It doesn't do a whole lot for spacing out the top end, because it seems to me, at least, like they're still balancing this in respect to where these things are going to show up. So, you know, Tier 5 is Normandy, and Tier 4 for that matter, or Normandy and Berlin, right? There's nothing else there yet to space things out. So, I think once we get, like, the Battle of the Bulge, once we get the push back into Germany, I'm blanking on a lot of the different campaigns that happened on the Eastern Front, but once we get some of the action in, like, Hungary and Romania, once we get some of the action near Warsaw, for example, or Vyborg, if we get the push back into Finland by the Russians, I think that'll help space out a lot of the stuff between rank 3, 4, and 5. Another one that I've seen thrown around a lot that one of my friends would really like to see is the Siege of Leningrad. I mean, there's tons of options. It was a long war that very much so lived up to its name as a world war. But until we start getting more campaigns like that, I think this system will work. But I think that this is set up to be the skeleton of a future update, or set of future updates that really flesh this out. And I mean, even if you look at War Thunder, it makes sense. There was a time where 11.7, 10.0, 9.3 just didn't exist. And we're still getting more BRs as more stuff comes out in War Thunder, so I'm sure they'll take a similar stance here. I'm sure give it a year or two, and we'll be at Tier 7, and all the stuff in here in Tier 5 will be at, like, Tier 6, and some of the Tier 7 stuff will be, I don't know, like, Korea. We'll have, like, SKSs and, like, MiG-15s or something. I don't know. It might not be 2 years away, that might be more like 5 or 6 years away, but my point is, eventually we're going to see things get spaced out a lot more, and I think the BRs are going to be a lot more comfortable, and a lot of the complaints that people have right now about Rank 3 seeing Rank 4 and 5 aren't going to be as severe as they are right now. Even though, like I said, I think a lot of Rank 3 can very much so take care of itself. And Lanchester's not bad, all the bars are fantastic. The M9 bazooka is... This is the good one, yeah, so... Not a fan of this one, though. Other than that, I think Japan's looking alright. I think it's a little bit odd that the Key 61 is rank 4, but I like that the Zero is rank 3. The Hiei and the Otsu should be fine. I'm curious to see where the new Chi-He that they announced today ends up. But, yeah, all things considered, looks to be pretty alright. Let's see, where are the paratroopers? Okay. They're BR2, just like the American ones. That should be fine, even though I think the American Pacific paratroopers are much more powerful, but... yeah. I think most of the changes are alright. I'd like to see some things get spaced out more. I'd love to see your comments down below. And get out there. Get your fancy new icon for playing your 3 matches. And win some games.